The night was quiet, but the world inside Shiny's heart was anything but. She sat alone by the window of her apartment, staring at the city lights below that seemed to shimmer with a kind of cruel beauty. Every reflection reminded her of Dylan, his voice, his laughter, the promises he made and then broke. The breakup had spread through the media like wildfire, but no one knew the real story, the way she had cried behind closed doors, the way her hands still trembled whenever she saw his name on the screen. She had loved him deeply, more than she ever thought possible. And now all she was left with was silence. The kind of silence that screamed louder than words. She thought she had no one left who could understand that kind of pain, but she was wrong. Miles Way had been there all along. He had watched from the sidelines, quietly, patiently, never once crossing the line that Dylan had drawn between them. He had seen how much she gave, how much she lost, how much she tried to hold herself together, while the world watched her fall apart. For weeks, he had wanted to speak to, tell her everything he felt. But he waited until the day she finally stopped pretending she was okay. That day came on a cold evening when the rain fell without warning. Shinyu had just stepped out of her car, umbrella forgotten, her clothes soaked, and her eyes red from crying. She didn't see him waiting by the corner of her building until he spoke her name softly. You. She froze. The sound of his voice carried something gentle, something steady. When she turned, Miles stood there with an umbrella in hand, his expression unreadable, but his eyes full of emotion. He stepped closer, holding the umbrella above her head. Even though he was getting drenched, "You'll catch a cold," he said quietly. She let out a small laugh, one that sounded broken. "I don't care anymore." He studied her face for a long moment, then sighed. "You should." The words were simple, but the way he said them made her look up. For the first time, she noticed the sadness in his eyes, the kind that mirrored her own. They walked together under the rain for a while, neither speaking. The silence between them, comfortable yet charged with something unspoken. When they reached her apartment door, she turned to thank him, but he hesitated. His hand trembled slightly as he brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. "You don't have to thank me," he said softly. Sheena blinked, unsure what to say. "Then what do I say?" He looked down for a moment, then back at her. "Say, you're going to let someone care about you again." Her breath caught. There was something in his tone that made her heart ache, something tender and real that she hadn't felt in a long time. She opened her mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. Miles gave a faint smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. "I know it's too soon," he said, his voice trembling just enough for her to notice. "And maybe I shouldn't say this now, but I can't keep pretending I don't feel it anymore." Shinyu felt her chest tighten. "Miles." He took a deep breath, his voice barely above a whisper. "I love you, Shinyu, with all my heart." The words hung in the air like a secret that couldn't be taken back. The rain outside grew heavier, the sound filling the silence between them. Shinyu stared at him, her eyes wide, her heart pounding. For a long moment, she said nothing. She didn't know how to. Miles stepped back slightly, lowering his gaze. "I'm not asking for anything," he continued. "I just needed you to know. You've been through enough pain. You don't have to face it alone anymore." Her tears came quietly then, falling freely without warning. She didn't know if she was crying for Dylan, for the love she lost, or for the new one standing right in front of her, waiting patiently without demanding anything in return. "Miles," she whispered. "Why now?" He smiled faintly. "Because now I finally see you're ready to be loved the way you deserve." That night, Shinyu didn't sleep. She replayed his words over and over again in her mind, the sincerity in his voice haunting her. No cameras, no headlines, no drama, just truth. The kind that heals rather than breaks. Days passed, and though she tried to avoid him, fate had other plans. They met again at a studio shoot for a new series. The air between them was heavy with unspoken tension. Every time their eyes met, her heart raced faster. During a break, he found her sitting alone again, lost in thought. Without a word, he sat beside her, his presence calm, steady. After a long silence, he said quietly, "You don't have to answer me. You love isn't a race. I just wanted you to know mine has nowhere else to go." She turned to him then, her eyes softening. "You really meant what you said that night?" He nodded. "Every word." She smiled, faintly, though her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "You always come when I'm broken, Miles." He looked at her gently. "Maybe that's when you need someone most." Her heart ached in ways she didn't expect. For so long, she had believed her story ended with Dylan. That love would only ever be a memory that hurt. But sitting beside Miles, something in her began to heal, not because he replaced the pain, but because he understood it. By the end of the shoot, the tension between them had changed. It wasn't heavy anymore. It was warm, familiar, almost hopeful. Before she left that day, she turned to him and whispered, "Thank you for loving me when I couldn't love myself." Miles smiled, his eyes soft. "I always will." Weeks later, the world still talked about her breakup with Dylan, but Shinyu didn't care anymore. She had found something real in the quiet moments that no one saw. Not a grand confession, not a headline, but a love that waited patiently. A love that didn't demand, a love that simply stayed. And for the first time in a long time, she smiled. Not because she forgot the past, but because she had finally found peace with it. Miles watched her from a distance. That evening as the sun dipped low behind the skyline, he didn't need words to know she felt the same. Some stories don't need perfect endings. Some just need honesty. And as the city lights flickered to life, Miles whispered to himself, "It's her. It's always been her." The night had grown heavy with silence, the air trembling between what was said and what was still left unsaid. Shinyu sat by the window of her apartment, staring at the rain that refused to stop. The city lights below blurred into a million broken reflections, each one reminding her of Dylan's last words, the ones that tore her world apart. But beneath that heartbreak, a faint echo of Miles's voice lingered, gentle, yet strong, carrying the words that had shaken her heart earlier that day. "I love you with all my heart." Those words played in her mind like a soft melody that refused to fade. She wanted to hate him for saying it so soon, for entering her life at its weakest point, but something inside her wouldn't let her. It was as if her soul had already known his before her heart even realized it. Hours passed. The rain grew louder. Then, there was a knock on the door. Shinyu froze. She knew that rhythm. 3 soft knocks followed by silence. It was Miles. When she opened the door, he stood there drenched from the rain, breathing hard, eyes trembling with emotion. For a moment, neither spoke. The storm outside seemed to echo the chaos inside both of them. Finally, Shinyu broke the silence. Her voice cracked, soft, but filled with everything she had kept buried. "Miles, why did you come back?" His eyes met hers, calm, yet filled with a fire that words could not hold. "Because I can't let you drown in this pain alone," he said quietly. "I know you're still trying to understand what happened with Dylan. I know you're scared, but I meant every word I said. I love you with all my heart, Shiny you, and I'll prove it. Even if it means waiting until your heart heals." The sincerity in his tone tore through her defenses. She looked away, tears already streaming down her face. "Why me, Miles? Why now, when everything is falling apart?" He stepped closer, his hands trembling as he gently held her shoulders. "Because, when I saw you break, something inside me broke too," he whispered. "I didn't fall in love with your smile or your fame. I fell for your silence, your strength, the way you keep giving, even when you're the one who's hurting." The rain kept pouring, but inside that tiny apartment, time seemed to stop. Shiny felt her chest tighten. For the first time since the breakup, she didn't feel alone. She looked into his eyes and saw no expectation, only truth, only love. "Miles," she said softly, "I'm not ready. My heart still remembers him." "I know," he said, his voice breaking. "But I'm not asking you to forget him. I'm asking you to let me stay while you heal. Her tears came faster now, but they weren't tears of pain, they were tears of relief. She nodded slowly, and he smiled, a small, quiet smile that carried the weight of years. Days turned into weeks. They started spending more time together. The world outside still whispered about Dylan, about the breakup, about Shina's silence, but she no longer cared. Each morning, Miles left a note by her door. Sometimes it was a simple quote, sometimes it was a sketch, but every note ended the same way. I love you, no matter how long it takes. One night, while filming resumed for her new project, Dylan unexpectedly appeared on set. The moment he saw Shinyu, time seemed to rewind. His eyes softened, but she didn't flinch this time. She had found strength in the storm. After the shoot, Dylan walked toward her. Shiyu, he began. I heard about Miles. I didn't think he'd be the one to make you smile. Again, she looked at him calm and composed. Neither did I, she said quietly, but sometimes the people we never expect are the ones who show us what love really means. He smiled faintly, realizing he had lost her for good, not to Miles, but to her own healing. Later that evening, Shinyu walked home to find Miles waiting outside holding 2 cups of coffee. She smiled, truly smiled, and for the first time in a long time, her heart didn't ache. He handed her the coffee and they sat together in silence, watching the city lights reflect across the wet pavement. Then she whispered, "You waited." He looked at her, eyes filled with quiet joy. "I told you I would." And in that stillness, surrounded by the echoes of what once was and the promise of what could be, Shinyu leaned forward and rested her head on his shoulder. No words were needed. The pain of the past had finally made way for something new. Love, quiet and real, had found them both at last. The camera of fate panned out, fading into the night, leaving only 2 silhouettes framed against the glow of distant city lights. Their story was no longer about heartbreak, it was about healing, and sometimes that's the most beautiful ending of all. If this story touched your heart, don't scroll away. Subscribe now for more emotional, cinematic stories that capture the pain, love, and healing behind every goodbye. Your next favorite story begins here.